channel is sponsored by Great Bay Outfitters. Great Bay Outfitters is a waterfront kayak shop located near Great Bay. They are New Jersey's #1 volume dealer of Old Town kayaks. Great Bay Outfitters specializes in fishing kayaks and offers demos, rentals, repair, rigging, and a full assortment of PFDs, dry suits, motors, paddles, and accessories from many major brands. What is up, everyone? Today I'm out here, Lake Worth, Florida, on the fishing pier, and I'm going to be dropping my underwater camera down, see what's under this pier, so stay tuned. Alright, if you're interested in this camera afterwards, there is a link down in the bio or the description down below. It's the Canfish camera. It just shoots HD footage and I believe 1080p, and it connects directly to your phone so you could, view the footage right away, which is really cool. So today's trip is a little bit different than what I normally do. If you follow the channel, you know that I'm mostly shooting from a GoPro and it's just above water, but I've really wanted to work on getting some really cool underwater footage. I figured no better place to test it than Florida and try and perfect it for when I get back to New Jersey for the summertime. But I sacrificed fishing this day just to test this out. So what I ended up doing, I grabbed the heaviest possible rod I had, which had 50-pound braid, and I tied a rig, a high-low rig, underneath the camera. Now, there's two, I guess, slots you would call it. One to tie your main line, the other to tie whatever lure or rig that you'd like to present. One recommendation, if you do get one of these cameras, you want to make sure that the line that's connected to the rig is much weaker than the main line. I already lost one camera this fall for my bonehead mistake, but learn from me. The other thing from fishing this camera up north that I notice is when you hook a fish with it, it gives you like a really rough video because the camera starts spinning. So what I did on this trip, I just brought some shrimp with me and I hooked them on completely whole, pretty much like Guggen style, just so that I really didn't run the risk of hooking anything. I didn't want to have a fish grab the rig and run it into the pier and then lose this camera. So if you see fish in this video feeding and I'm not setting the hook, it's on purpose because all I was just trying to do is get some good footage. But let's look at what we got. Here we go. Gonna drop her down, and the next footage you should see will be under the pier. So fortunately for me, I dropped it and didn't realize that the current had swept the line into the pier. As you can see, that the line actually got stuck on the piling, but fortunately it was not completely snagged and I was able to just kind of lift it up and get it out. But what was awesome on this first drop, I was just trying to ease into it and look what shows up. That was a sheep's head first drop. Interesting enough, he looked at the shrimp and I guess didn't want anything to do with it. Now the cool thing about this camera, other than seeing what fish are down there, what I think is more important is actually seeing the type of structures that are down below and what fish are holding to those structures. And you're going to see right now on this drop, we end up landing on a rock pile, and kind of cool to see. There's definitely a ton of diversity. I mean, on this drop, you could see a ringtail pinfish right there next to a French angelfish. I believe that is the black and yellow fish. I was thinking about bringing a sabiki rig and just dropping small pieces of shrimp down to see what we caught, but I mean, watching this footage to me is worth more than catching those little fish. It's just cool to see how they feed and how cautious they are. They'll come up and pick away wherever the hook isn't, because these fish have definitely been caught a handful of times. I believe a juvenile porkfish just came into frame. We'll see a few of those later on. Now, one of the things I noticed, if you see how much the camera is moving and how much the sediment on the bottom's kind of shifting, the day that I was down in Florida for about 48 hours, and the entire time I was there, the wind never dropped beneath 20 miles per hour. So there was a ton of current, and you could just see it from up top as well as down below. And if you notice, I'm reeling it up and I'm kind of shifting a few feet down and re-dropping it rather than just dragging it on the bottom. If I were somewhere where I knew there wasn't many snags, I would do that. But the fear of just dragging it along the bottom is you're kind of tempting fate with getting caught. And I mean, you could see how many submerged branches are down there and rocks and different hang-ups that I didn't want to lose the camera in. But on this shot coming up, I believe we start to see some bigger porkfish kind of show up. What I found interesting was the more I moved up and down the pier, the different species you would see. Now, Grant, we're kind of still in the same area. There's another porkfish, as well as another French angelfish right at the bottom, kind of picking at the bottom one. What's interesting though is you could always tell when you're about to get snagged because I could feel the weight right now hitting something, and when you pull up that little bit of resistance, anytime you feel that, I just reel it all the way in, and I don't even want to play with fire there. Now, speaking of playing with fire, I ended up shifting a little bit further down, and I thought I was kind of in the clear. And you're gonna see in this next clip, man, I panic a little bit up above on the pier because the weight ends up getting wedged between, I believe, a piece of coral and some rocks, which you're gonna see, and you're gonna hear me trying to pull it out. I believe this is where it gets stuck right here. And see, this is where the weight loop eventually snapped, which was nice because I didn't lose the camera and I didn't lose the rig. Now, after sweating that one out, I decided to move further down and get away from whatever that, snag that I was getting caught on. But what I noticed, which was really interesting, the more you moved around the pier, the more diversity you saw. For instance, just above the pier, watching people fish, closer to where the ocean was, where the waves are breaking, I saw a lot more kingfish, bluefish, grunts. As I went further down, started to see like more jacks and sheep's head and stuff like that. In this one, though, we're going to see some pretty cool fish. In fact, you're going to catch it right here in the top right corner is a pudding wife wrasse, I believe. He just kind of swam in and swam out. Now, I do think as I lift up, I see a few sheep's head, one in the bottom left corner. The top one kind of looks like a sergeant major. But what's neat on this next drop, we're going to start to get into some more exotic fish that, we haven't seen yet. As we drop down, one thing I noticed about these fish were the closer you were to the pier, the more skittish they were. Not saying that you can't catch them, because you definitely can if you have the right rig, size hook, and bait, but they're definitely more cautious than if you were to go out on a reef or somewhere that's probably less pressured than a fishing pier. But we just had a porkfish show up. In fact, believe that's an orange file fish that is kind of hovering around. I'm going to freeze it right about here where you can see him. He kind of blends in with the reef, but this is where all the exotics start to kind of show up. As that file fish is kind of trying to keep himself there. Looked like that was a mangrove snapper in the back, but you're going to see a Spanish hogfish come into frame right here. They got like the cool purple on their head. What I was finding interesting when combing through the footage from the underwater camera opposed to what I was seeing above the water is 90% of these species that you're seeing on this video, you're not seeing being caught on the pier. Um, like I said, most of the guys I saw fishing were catching jack crevalles, blue runners, sheep's head, bluefish, kingfish. But what's kind of interesting, you weren't seeing as many of the porkfish or these ringtail pinfish that keep showing up. I believe in this one, it's going to be a real quick in and out, but I believe it's going to be uh, a parrotfish, a blue one to be specific. I could be wrong. It's just really hard to tell from the angle of which the fish is swimming in and how quick he's in the frame and out. In hindsight, I wish I kind of suspended my rig maybe another foot off the bottom to get a little bit of a better picture of all the species, because I guarantee you there's fish swimming over us right now, but the current was very strong and I didn't want to run the risk of the rig getting blown into the pier. Now what's kind of funny is every time I drop down, there's it seems like the grunts and the pinfish and the porkfish are always the first ones there. In fact, you're going to see a tomatate grunt. They kind of look similar to a ringtail pinfish, as they have a solid black dot on the beginning of their tail right there, that one that just swam into frame. How you could really tell them apart from the pinfish is the pinfish have more of an oval body or oval shaped body, where the tomatates have kind of a slender, that fish right there. Now we are going to see some sergeant majors coming in, and they kind of look like sheep's head, but the one telltale sign, they're much smaller, that fish right there, and they have more yellow inside their stripes. Now, the more I was dropping down, the more structure I was seeing towards the end of the pier. But maybe you know this. If you do, comment down below. A lot of the structures I was seeing didn't look natural. Like this set of big rocks look like concrete, if I'm being honest. I can't really tell because of the growth on them, but they don't look like natural rocks. And I'm curious if it's remnants from maybe a previous pier, or I have no idea. But if you know, comment down below, because I am curious where all this came from. Now, what was also interesting was the amount of debris and junk. Like you could see a snorkel that's wedged in between these rocks here underneath the shrimp once the freeze frame ends. Um, you also get a good shot of a sergeant major, which is in the left side of this footage, as well as a mangrove snapper that kind of swims in. So when I got this camera and I went through the instructions, it kind of recommends that you keep your leader about 3 feet in length. But what I found when I was shooting footage up in New Jersey in like murkier waters, I had to shorten that leader. That way you got a better footage of what you were actually seeing. I actually use this camera striper fishing, and it just shows you how clear the water is down here compared to where I live in New Jersey. Uh, you know, I had to have about a foot of leader to see a striper striking the lure in the water by me. Where here I have it probably about 24 inches of total leader, and I probably could have raised it a little bit more, but I didn't want to run the risk of missing footage of what was biting on the bottom. This footage is getting me excited for the spring and the summer back home, because I think there's a ton of tremendous opportunities to capture, sheep's head, triggerfish, stripers, tog, flounder, a variety of species, if I could get some clean water days to shoot. But it's crazy. For down in Florida, this is like, the water was pretty murky, and it's crystal clear on this camera. So I can only imagine what it's like in the summer when the water's clear. But right now you're going to see two actually different types of file fish, which I'll freeze frame in a little bit. There's one at the bottom, one trying to eat the shrimp on top. They are extremely hard to catch. I've tried catching them. I caught one years ago with a bare hook, but their mouths are so tiny. I mean, you can see like how small. Now in this uh, freeze frame, we have a juvenile angelfish, a mangrove snapper to the left of them, and two different types of filefish. The one that's higher up, I believe, is a plainhead filefish, and you'll get a better look at it in a second here. He's going to come up and try and eat the shrimp on the side here, and we'll get a side view of him, as well as one of those Spanish hogfish on the right. And this part of the pier, it seemed like there was just more life. I don't know if it was because there was more rocks and more coral, or what. Now, all the drops that I did for this video were straight vertical, up and down. I had some thoughts of casting out away from the pier, but I was fearful that if I get my line hung up in something on an angle, it's not going to end well. So I stayed with the straight up and down view. I've seen guys who use this camera in the surf and get really cool footage. So I definitely would like to try that, this summer down this way when we get the good kingfish run. But some more porkfish showing up in the footage here. Now, right before I left, I ended up going all the way towards the base of the pier, right where the waves are starting to crash. I ended up catching two different things that I didn't catch on the end, which should be coming up shortly. I'm actually going to need your guys' help with this one because I'm usually pretty good with identifying fish, but I have no clue what this fish is. And it'd be tough for me to make a guess because I didn't really get a clear shot of it from the side. It's just pretty much going to be swimming beneath the rig. So you're going to briefly see it swimming under the rig here. I'm going to freeze it for a second. And my guess, the way it's moving kind of looks like a snapper, maybe a larger mangrove or possibly a mutton just by the size of its tail. But I'll let you guys take a guess. I have no idea. It'll circle back and then it'll go out of frame again. This is the best shot I got, but based off the tail, I have no idea. Could be a bluefish. I saw a ton of guys catching bluefish where I was dropping this, but they were casting away from the pier, not underneath of it. So this would be my last drop of the day. I have probably another hour's worth of footage, but a lot of the species that you've seen already were kind of doubled up in those clips, so I didn't want to make this a super long video that was redundant. But you'll see it looks like kind of like a calico crab here holding on to that shrimp. I actually would have loved to actually get him up, because if I would have got him up, I would have thrown him on a hook for a sheep's head, because I guarantee you those sheep can't resist those. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below. Let me know if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching.